Hello everyone and welcome to Blank First Page. My name is Lucas. This video is all about ring-bound notebooks. For the longest time I have hated ring-bound notebooks. Obviously more recently that has changed and I'm here to tell you why. I think my aversion to the ring-bound format comes from school. I think around secondary school, high school kind of time, we moved from the copybooks, this kind of thing. We used to have one per subject. And we moved from that into secondary school where we were using large A4 format, spiral bound foolscaps, we used to call them. We'd buy these A4 sized lined notebooks that were usually perforated so that you could rip the pages out and then file them according to the subject. So it made sense from a practical perspective. You only had to carry around one notebook, but then you could rip them out and then file them. And then later when you had to go and study, you just pick out the particular file of the subject you were going to study at that time. So I think the fact that, first of all, the spiral bound is associated for me with school and the type of learning that I hate doing. And also the fact that using this kind of spiral notebook that I had to use, I had to rip the pages out. And that is something I really hate doing in a notebook. First of all, because you lose the purpose of a notebook. There isn't the same satisfaction of papers in a file as there is with papers all bound neatly in a notebook. And as you used the notebook and you had to rip these pages out to keep your filing system logical, the notebook itself got thinner and thinner and you ended up with this huge spiral on the one side and a diminishing kind of thickness of paper, which made it very uncomfortable to use. So that created this negative feeling in my mind every time I thought about spiral notebooks. So I avoided them. I just did not buy them for a very long time. The first spiral notebook in my collection I received as a gift, which is this one. It's a high quality notebook. The paper is recycled, but it still has a nice texture to it. But I got it in 2010 and I didn't use it until 4 years later because of my aversion to spiral bound notebooks. I'm not sure what caused me to pick it up and use it for the first time. I used this from 2014, given the last notes I took in here. I think it was about 2015 when I was in Australia that I finished it. So it took me about a year to get through it. Used it mainly as a work notebook. It wasn't long after I must have finished this, that I then started using my second spiral bound notebook. I had realized that it is quite nice for work to have a notebook that you can double over. When you're going from one meeting to another, sitting kind of around the meeting table, it is more convenient to have something that doubles on itself to just take up the space of one page. So from a practicality perspective, that was kind of the first feature that made me believe in spiral bound notebooks. So I went in completely the other direction in terms of size. So this one's an A4 size. This says it's A7. It's a Muji. It's just a standard Muji notepad. One side of the page is blank, the other side is lined. So it's a nice little combination. This was an attempt of starting a pocket notebook that I could use for work. That was not my field notes, because my field notes are just my personal everyday carry, but something that testing whether this kind of format would suit me. And this is when the conversion started to the acceptance that there is a place for ring-bound notebooks, because the feature of doubling it over itself, it's not just that the space can be limited to the actual surface area of the notebook itself. It is also that it is a very practical notebook to carry around right on the go with. I needed something that I could quickly take a note in and comfortably take a note in. So as a next step, then I chose this Grain notebook by Midori, because it was kind of in between the two that I had previously used for a number of reasons. The first one was a gift, it's enormous. The second one was very cheap, very small. This is kind of in between. It is much more usable. The practicality of the notebook itself and how much I can fill in the page. Bit higher end, so coming more towards this gift that I was given in terms of the Midori paper is very nice. Having now used a number of Muji notebooks, there is absolutely nothing wrong with Muji notebook paper. In fact, it is some of the most reliable paper, I think. But this Grain notebook then represented a nice treat yourself kind of notebook, now that I had proven to myself that I liked the format. Having confirmed that to myself, I obviously had to try all the field notes versions of spiral bound notebooks. I've used this one as an investing notebook. This one's a work notebook. This one is kind of the ultimate. It is literally a reporter's notebook designed with all these features in mind of having a nice long page to write on. You can get a lot of information on one page. It is a notebook that you'll comfortably be able to hold and support with the palm of your hand. Field Notes also had these heavy-duty notebooks, they called them, as one of the quarterly editions. Again, this flip motion is a really easy, nice, quick access into a notebook, which I appreciate. As I move through these first few years of using the spiral-bound notebooks, I kind of relied on my favorite brands, some of the things I was able to find locally in Australia. Then I started to run out of the spiral notebooks that I had, so I started proactively looking for new options. And the first one that came about was the Kunisawa, very high quality Japanese notebook maker. They make many versions of spiral bound notebooks. They also make fantastic standard bound notebooks. I have a few of them as well. Exactly what you'd expect from a Japanese notebook, kind of that very nice, smooth but robust paper. All their paper has that nice cream-colored tint that gives it that high-end feel. You can write on it with anything from the cheapest pencil and pen to the most expensive fountain pen, and all of those are a joy to use. I've spoken about the Stenographer's notebook that I got in New York, that I used also as a house notebook. I've got videos on those. And now that spiral bound notebooks are kind of in my rotation, when I go to stationery stores and when I'm looking for interesting new notebooks to get, I also seek out a spiral bound, and I've collected a handful of, for me they're kind of more novelty because they are notebooks I will use as a one-off and not buy over and over again. But I've got the Kleid Notes from New York that I spoke about in that video. I've got this Diamond Memo, which is a notebook made by Midori. This Plano that I got from Present and Correct in London. Same with this Postalco that I got from the same place, which has this interesting mechanism where the spirals are kind of housed within the notebook, similar to the Field Notes, but in the other way. And as you open it up, you get this kind of nice clipboard feel for the notebook. It's got a very fine grid on it, which almost makes it useless as a grid, but it's an interesting notebook anyway. I also found a large version of that same Grain notebook that I've used before. I still haven't gotten around to using this one. This will definitely be a work notebook that I put into rotation at some point. That's kind of my weird and wonderful journey of maybe less than accessible notebooks, and they are nice to use, obviously, but I like an everyman kind of notebook, an everyday notebook that you can reliably get over and over again. And with some of these spiral notebooks that I've used, I'm not sure where I would find them again. However, two brands I have much more confidence in being able to do that, being able to find them over and over again, and that is Muji and Atoma. The Atoma notebooks, I've got a video on my channel about Belgian notebooks that does a deep dive into these, but basically they are a Belgian-made notebook that have this proprietary mechanism where, because of these individual rings that bind the notebook, the pages are punched such that they are fully removable without needing to be torn because of this pattern that they have. And what it means is you can take a piece of paper out from anywhere in the notebook and put it back in anywhere in the notebook. And it also means that once you're completely done with a notebook, you could, if you wanted to, take out the innards of the notebook completely out without having to tear them, file them somewhere, and keep using the notebook, allowing the cover to be nicely worn in. It comes in a number of different layouts internally: blank, lined, ruled, grid, and it also comes in different covers. These, I have confidence that these are still going to be around. They're probably more accessible in Europe than anywhere else in the world. The other brand, unsurprisingly, is Muji. If I had to ever recommend a single brand that will cover any spectrum of type of stationery, from your pocket notebooks to your individual sheets to bound notebooks, it would be Muji, because the value for money that you get, I haven't calculated it for any of my other notebooks, but I think Muji is impossible to beat. They are very cheap, a few euros per notebook most of the time, and the quality of the paper you get is pretty much the same, in my view, as you get on kind of life stationery notebooks, Midori notebooks, the Kunisawa notebooks that I was mentioning. Because Muji is Japanese, it might be that they all come from the same paper mill. I'm not too sure. Muji make a number of different type of ring-bound notebooks. They've got this version. They make a black version of this, but it only comes in lined, which is why I don't have any of those. They also make a thinner version that does not have the band, which does only come in lined, but I love the functional format of this so much that I have bought and have used many of these lined versions. Thin, it is only 48 pages, so you get through it quickly. I get to cycle through the notebook relatively quickly. I'm not stuck with a particular notebook for so long, as would be the case with kind of this honking notebook here. They wear in nicely. The rings are pretty much the same thickness as the notebook itself. Not so much with this version of the notebook. They do stick out a bit more, but it's not too big of a deal here. The nice feature of this notebook is that it is a dot grid, which is also relatively rare to find in a low cost or a kind of a value-based notebook. And obviously they cover everything from this size down to this size. So nothing will ever obviously replace my pocket notebook preference, and field notes in particular, for my personal everyday carry. But for any other format notebook, I think just now looking at how many spiral notebooks I have versus how many, let's say, traditionally bound notebooks I have, I think I've fully made the switch from hating spiral bound to loving them. From the ones I've used, if you're looking to splurge on the highest end, I think the Kunisawa brand is a good one to look at. If you want to get that same enjoyable writing feeling, but you want to be more on the budget value side, nothing is going to beat a Muji. So if you do have recommendations of spiral bound notebooks that I've missed, please let me know in the comments. Let me know which spiral bound notebooks you've used, why you like them, and thank you very much for watching. I will see you on the next one.